guys, welcome to our channel. This is Science Lectures. Please consider subscribing and comment in the comment section and like our videos. So we are still continuing with cell biology. Our series of cell biology, and today we are going to have a look at the major cell functions. So cells, we say that cell is a basic unit of life, a functional basic unit of life. And cells have different functions they perform in our body. So today we are going to have a look at these functions, the cell functions. So cell function number one as our cell function is metabolism. And metabolism is defined as, so cells will carry out metabolism. So minus cells, metabolism will not take place. And we know metabolism supports the system of different organisms. So what is metabolism? Metabolism is processing of nutrients. So when we have nutrients, in fact it's a process of processing the nutrients, process in which our nutrients are processed, and metabolism is divided into two. It's divided into we have a type of metabolism called catabolism, and catabolism is where we join, where small molecules, catabolism is where we have large molecules broken down to simpler molecules. Using ATP, to yield ATP. So they yield energy in form of ATP. That is what happens in catabolism. So in other words, we are having a large molecule. Let's say this molecule is AB. Then catabolism will break or split this molecule to form simpler molecules, and energy in form of ATP will be released. So that is how catabolism is very important in the body. But we also have another form of metabolism, and that is anabolism. In anabolism, we are joining two simpler molecules. Let's say we are joining simpler molecule A and simpler molecule B to form a larger molecule, and this process consumes energy, ATP, energy in form of ATP. So that is the distinct difference between catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism, we are metabolizing a larger molecule to form simpler molecules, and the process produces energy in form of ATP. Anabolism, we are joining two simpler molecules to form a larger molecule. So this is the larger molecule we are forming, a larger molecule or a complex molecule. Can call it a complex molecule. How is this important in the body? Let's say someone takes in anything in the body, let's say food, a carbohydrate. This carbohydrate will be broken down into simpler molecules, that is glucose. And glucose and this glucose will undergo a process known as, can undergo glycolysis. You can have glycolysis. Glycolysis is a process that does not require oxygen. Glycolysis is anaerobic, and it will yield energy in form of ATP. So glycolysis will yield ATP. But the ATP produced by glycolysis, the anaerobic form, is not as much as the one produced by the second pathway we are going to see, which is called the Krebs cycle. The Krebs cycle is the second pathway we are going to look at. So glycolysis is an anaerobic process and produces ATP, and glycolysis is what happens in prokaryotic cells. So prokaryotes utilize glycolysis for provision of energy in form of ATP. Now let's look at the Krebs cycle, also known as the acid cycle. This one involves presence of oxygen to yield energy. So the Krebs cycle will yield much more quantities of energy as compared to glycolysis. So that is how metabolism is, that is a function of cells and known as metabolism, where we are processing nutrients, involves the processing of nutrients, a process of processing nutrients, and is divided into catabolism and anabolism. Catabolism, we are breaking a large complex molecule or a complex molecule to form simpler molecules and ATP. Then anabolism, we are joining two simpler molecules, consuming ATP to form these simpler molecules. And we say the process of catabolism, of breaking down these molecules, like for example, food taken in, like a carbohydrate being taken in, then this carbohydrate broken down into glucose, then glucose further broken down to form the energy in form of ATP. And we have a process of glycolysis that is anaerobic, then the aerobic process, which is the Krebs cycle that yields much more energy. Glycolysis takes place only and only, prokaryotes utilize only and only the glycolysis. So that is cell function number 1. Then cell function number 2 is creation of new cells. So number 2 is creation of new cells. So creation of new cells. New cells, in the cell theory we stated that cells form from pre-existing cells. So minus presence of a cell, there will be no cells being formed. So this one is also a cell function, creation of new cells. And in multicellular organisms, if we have a multicellular organism, in multicellular organism, creation of new cells leads to growth. So growth happens when there is creation of new cells in multicellular organisms. However, we can have also procreation happening in vegetative process happening in certain plants. Procreation. Cells are there, then others are created from the pre-existing ones. But in multicellular organisms, that is what we refer to as growth, the increase in number of cells. Then for prokaryotes, formation of other cells or their cell division is what we call fission. Fission leads to formation of other cells in prokaryotes like bacteria. So this fission can be binary fission or multiple fission. So a bacteria cell will have this happening. So creation of new cells that leads to growth is due to presence of cells that are already existing, and prokaryotes will have fission. However, when new cells are being formed, formation of new cells, whenever we have new cells being formed, we also have DNA replication also taking place. So that is the second cell function. So the third cell function, have a look at the third cell function. And the third cell function is differentiation, cell differentiation. But before we look at cell differentiation, we can look at protein synthesis. Because it's also a cell function. Protein synthesis. And what is protein synthesis? Protein synthesis involves assembling. We assemble, there is assembling of amino acids, to form proteins. And protein synthesis is effected by the presence of ribosomes. Then we have the different types of RNA are also involved. The transfer RNA, the messenger RNA, Of course, this process takes place when using information decoded in DNA, information encoded in DNA or RNA. That is the information that is used to synthesize a large protein. So, and protein synthesis is divided into two processes, basic ones, that is transcription and translation. And transcription is all about formation of the single-stranded messenger RNA. So initially we have a strand of DNA, then we split the strand using the helicase enzyme, like we will see in the process of of protein synthesis in our molecular biology series. So we'll have this DNA split into a single strand of messenger RNA. That is transcription. Then in translation, we'll assemble the polypeptide. So the polypeptide is now the protein molecule. So protein synthesis basically is formation of proteins by assembling the amino acids, different amino acids, and it's divided into two, transcription and translation. However, minus cells, this process might not take place. That's why cells are very important, because these proteins are now used in different functions as structures for supporting the cell, the organelles of different organs. So that is the third function. Then the fourth function of the cells is cell differentiation. What others can call cell specialization. So what is differentiation or specialization? The process by which generic cells are developed into specialized cells capable of carrying out specific function, specialized functions. So they are capable of carrying out specialized functions. So that is cell specialization. We have a cell that develops into other cells that are capable of carrying out specialized functions. For example, if we have stem cells, a stem cell developing into, let's say, a muscle cell, later on in life developing into a muscle cell, which is capable of carrying out a specific function, or formation of a nerve cell, which is specialized for carrying out a specific function. So we have a cell, let's say a stem cell, developing into all these different types of cells. That is what we call cell specialization, because these cells are capable of carrying out specified functions. If you didn't watch our video on stem cells, you will look for the video of the stem cells, where we see different types of stem cells and how they operate, how they are obtained. So that is cell differentiation. How is it important? So for cell differentiation, what we should know is that cells will change in function, will have a specific function, and cells will change in structure or morphology. Stroke morphology. To that one that suits their specified function. So they will change. How are stem cells important? How is cell differentiation important? In multicellular organisms, this is an advantage, these are advantages of stem cells. Multicellular organisms, differentiated cells, these differentiated cells are capable of carrying out specific functions functions which improves efficiency. So this improves efficiency within the multicellular, among the multicellular organisms. Then another advantage of cell specialization is that cells change shape, size, then also responsiveness to the one that suits their specified function. Then another important thing is that cell specialization has led to stem cell therapy. So it's one of the leading things into stem cell research and stem cell therapy. Which stem cell research and stem cell therapy can be applied in disease management of dysfunctional tissues in the body or dysfunctional organs in the body. Then a variety of functions with stem cell therapy. So cell differentiation, where we have cells, generic cells like the stem cells, developing into cells that perform specified functions. So some of the examples of these